Here is a statement that will likely make your stomach churn, especially if you were raised in a household where the lights were turned off the second you left a room and where brand name cereal was considered a cardinal sin. Saving money is often the fastest way to ruin your life. I am not telling you to liquidate your 401k to buy a sports car that you cannot drive in the winter. I am not suggesting that financial recklessness is a virtue. What I am suggesting, and what I intend to prove to you through the architecture of a story that is as much yours as it is the man I am about to introduce, is that there is a lethal difference between conserving energy and stopping your heart. Most people believe that the path to wealth is built by piling bricks around themselves, creating a fortress of solitude where not a single penny can escape. They believe that if they just cut enough coupons, skip enough lattes, and deny themselves enough joy, they will eventually arrive at a destination called safety. But safety is not a destination. It is a state of mind, and paradoxically, the tighter you grip your money, the more slippery your grasp on true security becomes. We are taught to look at our bank accounts as storage units, cold vaults where value goes to hibernate. But money is not corn to be stored in a silo against a coming famine. Money is a current. It is electricity. It is water. If you dam a river completely, you do not create a reserve, you create a swamp. And in swamps, things rot. The most dangerous financial strategy in modern America is not spending too much. It is saving in a way that atrophies your soul and renders you incapable of generating new value. This is the story of Elias Thorne, a man who built a castle out of fear, only to watch it collapse under the weight of a rainstorm he thought he was prepared for. Elias Thorne lived in a suburb that was neither affluent nor destitute, in a house that sat in the perpetual gray twilight of Ohio. Elias was 45 years old, but his spirit was ancient, weathered by a chronic, low-level panic that hummed in his veins like a refrigerator on the fritz. He was a master of the microscopic economy. He knew the price of milk at 3 different grocery stores and would drive an extra 4 miles to save 30 cents, never calculating the wear on his tires or the cost of the gasoline. His home was a museum of deferred maintenance. The paint on the siding was peeling, revealing the gray wood beneath, but Elias refused to hire a painter because he could do it himself, eventually, when the weather was right, which it never was. The faucet in the kitchen dripped, a rhythmic torture that he tuned out because a plumber cost money, and a bucket under the sink cost nothing. Elias worked as a mid-level actuary, a job that suited his temperament perfectly. He calculated risk for a living. He saw the world not as a playground of opportunity, but as a minefield of potential liabilities. Every dollar that entered his pocket was a prisoner of war, captured and thrown into a high-yield savings account that barely outpaced inflation. He called this the fortress. In his mind, he was building a wall against the chaos of the world. He denied his wife, Sarah, vacations, citing the need for an emergency fund. He denied his children, Leo and Maya, the small luxuries of childhood, the summer camps, the new bicycles, teaching them instead the grim virtue of making do. He believed he was a good father because he was ensuring they would never starve. He did not realize he was starving them of something far more vital than food. He was starving them of the experience of abundance. The architecture of his anxiety was intricate. It wasn't just about hoarding cash. It was about the refusal to engage with the world. When his car made a rattling noise, he turned up the radio, terrified of the mechanic's bill. When his roof lost a few shingles in a windstorm, he climbed up with a tube of caulk and a prayer, patching the symptoms while ignoring the structural rot beneath. He lived in a state of defensive crouching. He told himself he was being prudent. He told himself he was smarter than the neighbors with their leased SUVs and their credit card debt. And while it was true that Elias had zero debt, he also had zero leverage. He had zero joy, and most critically, he had zero resilience. The trap of this old thinking is seductive because it offers a false sense of control. When you refuse to spend, the number in the bank account does not go down. It feels stable. But stability is an illusion in a universe governed by entropy. While Elias was hoarding his pennies, the world was moving. Inflation was quietly eating the value of his savings like termites in a wooden beam. His skills at work were becoming obsolete because he refused to pay for the seminars and certifications that would have kept him competitive. His health was deteriorating because he bought the cheapest food and skipped preventative checkups to save on copays. He was not preserving his life. He was slowly cannibalizing it. The collapse did not happen all at once. It rarely does. It began with the weather, as these things often do. It was a November storm, a relentless, freezing rain that battered the state for 3 days straight. The roof that Elias had patched with caulk and denial finally gave up the ghost. It wasn't a leak, it was a surrender. At 2 in the morning, a groan echoed through the house, followed by the terrifying sound of rushing water. The structural beam in the attic, rotted through from years of unaddressed moisture, snapped. A section of the roof collapsed into the master bedroom, bringing with it insulation, drywall, and a torrent of freezing rain. Elias and Sarah scrambled in the dark, screaming, trying to save the furniture, trying to understand how their fortress had been breached. But the water didn't care about Elias's savings account. It soaked into the floorboards, it ruined the electrical wiring, it destroyed the heirloom dresser. When the sun rose, the house was a wreck. But the true blow came 3 days later. The insurance adjuster, a man with cold eyes and a clipboard, walked through the ruin. He pointed out the rot in the beams. He pointed out the amateur patch jobs on the shingles. He looked at Elias and shook his head. "This wasn't an act of God, Mr. Thorne," the adjuster said. "This is long-term negligence. You didn't maintain the structure. The policy covers accidents, not decay." The claim was denied. The cost to repair the house was astronomical. It was more than the emergency fund Elias had spent 20 years bleeding his soul to build. He had to drain everything. The savings, the retirement accounts, the rainy day jars. And it wasn't enough. He had to take out a loan at a predatory interest rate just to make the house livable again. In 1 week, 20 years of sacrifice evaporated. Elias stood in his unfinished living room, smelling the mold, and realized that his strategy had not only failed, it had destroyed him. He had saved money on the roof to keep his money in the bank, and now he had neither the roof nor the money. He fell to his knees on the warped floorboards and wept, not out of sadness, but out of the terrifying realization that he had been wrong about everything. The weeks that followed were a blur of Great Depression. Elias walked through the world like a ghost. He felt betrayed by the universe. He had followed the rules. He had been frugal. Why was he being punished? It was during this period of desolation that he found himself wandering into a small, cluttered antique shop on the edge of town, seeking refuge from the cold rain that he now had a phobia of. The shop was called The Second Chance, and it smelled of linseed oil and old cedar. The proprietor was a man named Silas, a giant of a man with hands like tree roots and a beard that looked like a bird's nest. Silas was sanding a chair when Elias walked in. He didn't look up immediately. He just kept working, the rhythmic shhhshhh of the sandpaper filling the silence. Elias watched him. The chair was a wreck, broken leg, scarred finish. Why bother? Elias muttered, more to himself than to the man. "It's trash." Silas stopped sanding. He looked up, his eyes bright and piercing beneath bushy brows. "Trash?" Silas asked, his voice a deep rumble. "There is no such thing as trash, friend. There is only raw material waiting for vision." Elias scoffed. "It's broken. It would cost more to fix it than it's worth. That's the economy of it. You're throwing good money after bad." Silas put down the sandpaper and walked over to the counter, pouring 2 cups of coffee from a thermos. He gestured for Elias to take one. Elias hesitated. He usually didn't accept free things, suspicious of the obligation, but the warmth was inviting. "You look like a man who has spent his life building dams," Silas said, leaning against a stack of books. "I don't know what that means," Elias replied defensively. "It means you think wealth is a lake," Silas said. "You think you dig a hole, fill it with water, and guard it. But water that sits still goes bad. It breeds mosquitoes. It grows algae. You can't drink it after a while." Silas took a sip of his coffee. "Real wealth is a river. It flows in, it flows out. It turns the wheel of the mill on its way through. It generates power because it moves. You have to let it go to get the energy from it." Elias stared at him. The metaphor struck a nerve that was raw from the roof collapse. "I saved everything," Elias whispered. "And I lost it all. Because you were trying to preserve the past," Silas said gently. "You were trying to keep the roof from 20 years ago instead of building the roof for today. You were hoarding dead energy. Money is meant to be planted, not buried. When you bury a seed, it's a funeral. When you plant a seed, it's an investment. Both look like putting something in the dirt, but the intent changes the outcome." Silas walked back to the broken chair. "This chair? I bought it for $10. I will spend $40 on materials and 5 hours of my time fixing it. I will sell it for $400. Not because I am ripping someone off, but because I am adding value. I am taking a risk that I can see the beauty in it. You see the cost of the sandpaper. I see the value of the restoration. That is the difference between us. You are an accountant of costs. I am an investor in potential. The window of revelation didn't open with a bang. It creaked open slowly, letting in a beam of light that illuminated the dust in Elias's mind. He realized he had lived his life in the loss column. Every expense was a loss. He never looked at the investment column. He realized that by refusing to fix the roof properly, he hadn't been saving money. He had been deferring a catastrophe. He had been trading small, manageable payments for a total bankruptcy of his security. Elias looked at the chair again. He saw the curve of the wood. He saw the potential. "Show me," Elias said. "Show me how to fix it." This marked the beginning of the rebellion of small steps. It was terrifying. The first time Elias bought a piece of furniture to restore, a battered oak nightstand he found at a garage sale for $15. His hands shook as he handed over the cash. His internal alarm system was screaming. That is $15 gone. That is 3 lunches. That is safety leaking away. But he forced himself to silence the voice. He took the nightstand to his garage, which was still damp from the leak. He had to buy supplies. Sandpaper, stain, varnish, new brass knobs. The total came to $60. He felt physically ill at the checkout counter. He was $75 in the hole now. In his old life, this would have been a crisis. But Silas had given him a mantra: don't look at the cost, look at the yield. Elias spent his evenings in the garage. For the first time in years, he wasn't sitting in front of the television worrying about the stock market or the heating bill. He was working. He was sweating. He was sanding away the grime of someone else's neglect, and in doing so, he was sanding away his own callousness. He learned to be patient. He learned that if you rush the varnish, it bubbles. You have to invest the time. You have to give the wood what it needs, not the bare minimum you can get away with. When the nightstand was finished, it glowed. It was a rich, honey color, the brass knobs shining under the garage light. Sarah came out to see it. She touched the smooth surface and looked at Elias with a mixture of surprise and admiration he hadn't seen in a decade. "It's beautiful," she said. Elias put it on an online marketplace. He asked for $200. He thought he was crazy. Who would pay that? But within an hour, his phone buzzed. A young couple came to pick it up. They didn't haggle. They didn't look at it as a used piece of junk. They saw it as a vintage treasure. They handed him 10 $20 bills. Elias held the money in his hand. $200. He had spent $75. He had made $125 of profit. But it wasn't just profit. It was created value. He hadn't waited for a boss to give him a raise. He hadn't waited for a bank to pay him interest. He had used his money and his labor to create more money. The feeling was intoxicating. It was the opposite of safety. It was vitality. He realized that safety is static, but security is dynamic. Safety is a wall. Security is the ability to fight. He had been hiding behind a wall, but now he was learning to wield a sword. The rebellion grew. Elias stopped looking for the cheapest items at the grocery store and started looking for the healthiest, realizing that his body was the primary engine of his wealth. He spent money on a gym membership. The old Elias would have calculated the annual cost and fainted. The new Elias calculated the cost of a heart attack and realized the gym was a bargain. He invested in a better suit for work. He walked taller. His boss noticed. The energy of the river was flowing through him. Chapter 4 brings us to the shift in scale. You cannot restore furniture in a garage forever if you want true freedom. You have to scale. And scaling requires the scariest thing of all for a chronic saver: trust. Elias's side business, which he called New Leaf Restorations, was booming. He had too many orders and not enough time. He was still working his day job. He was exhausted. The old Elias would have quit the side hustle or worked himself to death to keep every penny of the profit. But the new Elias remembered Silas's lesson about the river. He hired a local teenager, a kid named Marcus who was good with his hands but lacked direction. Elias paid him a fair wage, more than he had to. The old voice in his head screamed, "You are giving away your profit." But Elias argued back, "I am buying time. I am buying capacity." With Marcus sanding and prepping, Elias could focus on the finishing and the sourcing. They doubled their output. Then they tripled it. Elias started buying higher-end pieces, investing thousands of dollars into inventory. He was spending money at a rate that would have given his former self a stroke. But the money was coming back multiplied. The psychological shift was profound. Elias stopped fearing bills. He saw them as operating costs for a life that was generating revenue. He fixed the roof of his house, not with a patch, but with the best architectural shingles on the market. He paid the contractor with a smile, knowing that he was buying 30 years of peace of mind. He was no longer a victim of the weather. He was prepared for it. The community began to see him differently. He wasn't the hunched, anxious man who scrutinized the receipt at the diner. He was the man who tipped well. He was the man who sponsored the Little League team. He was generous, not because he was reckless, but because he operated from a place of abundance. He understood that money is like manure. Pile it up and it stinks. Spread it around and it makes things grow. Elias eventually left his actuary job. He didn't retire. He pivoted. He turned New Leaf into a full-time design and restoration firm. He didn't just have savings in the bank. He had assets. He had inventory. He had a brand. He had skills. He had a network of customers who trusted him. This brings us to the philosophy of true security. What Elias learned, and what you must understand, is that the person who saves everything ultimately has nothing, because they have invested in nothing. They have bet against themselves. They have bet that the world is a dangerous place and that they are too weak to navigate it, so they must hide. The 3 pillars of the new financial mindset that Elias discovered are these. First, velocity over volume. It doesn't matter how big the pile of cash is if it is stagnant. Inflation will eat it. Disaster will drain it. What matters is the velocity. How quickly can you move money into an asset, have that asset increase in value, and return the money to you? The river must move. You must be willing to part with cash to acquire value. You must fix the roof to save the house. You must buy the book to learn the skill. You must hire the coach to improve the performance. Second, production over protection. The old mindset is defensive, protect what you have. The new mindset is offensive, produce what you need. Security does not come from a lock on the door. It comes from the ability to build a new house if this one burns down. Elias realized that his true wealth wasn't the money he made from the chairs. It was the ability to find, fix, and sell the chairs. If the bank collapsed tomorrow, Elias would be fine because his wealth was in his competence, not his account balance. Third, abundance over scarcity. This is the hardest one. Scarcity tells you that there is only one pie and you must fight for your slice and hide it in your napkin. Abundance tells you that you are the baker. You can make more pies. When Elias paid Marcus well, Marcus worked harder and the business grew. When Elias fixed his house properly, the house increased in value. When Elias tipped the waitress, he felt rich, and that feeling of richness gave him the confidence to make bigger deals. Generosity is not a drain on wealth, it is a declaration of it. We arrive now at the end, but really, it is a beginning for you. You are likely sitting there, mentally tallying your expenses, worrying about the price of gas, worrying about the future. You are building a wall. You are mixing the mortar of fear and laying the bricks of frugality, thinking that if you just build the wall high enough, the storm won't reach you. I am here to tell you that the storm reaches everyone. The walls will fall. The roof will leak. The dollar will lose its value. Stop building a fortress. It is a tomb. Instead, go out to the river. Break the dam. Take that money you are clutching so tightly and use it. Use it to learn a new language. Use it to buy a better set of tools. Use it to take a mentor to lunch. Use it to fix the small problems in your life before they become catastrophes. Use it to plant seeds. Yes, planting a seed feels like throwing it away. You dig a hole, and you drop the kernel of corn into the dark earth. It is gone. You have lost it. But you haven't lost it. You have entrusted it to the laws of growth. If you keep the corn in your pocket, it will eventually shrivel and you will starve.